Stop everything you are doing right now and close your other tabs, because this is not a drill. What is unfolding behind the scenes is extremely serious, and if you are watching this, you are already ahead of most people. In the last few hours, Iran issued an emergency military order that is never released lightly. Every senior commander was told to return to duty within 48 hours, with no vacations, no medical leave, and no delays. This order is not about readiness or training. It is issued only when leadership believes a strike is either imminent or unavoidable. This is the level right before war, and it tells us that Iran believes something is coming that is big enough that no one can afford to be out of position. As these commanders take their posts, a claim has surfaced from inside Iran's power structure that is sending shockwaves through military circles. A member of parliament, who does not speak without approval, claimed that Iran has successfully tested a long-range intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM. An ICBM exists for one purpose only: to reach across continents, with an estimated range of 10,000 to 12,000 kilometers. Geography no longer protects the Western world. At this range, much of Europe is exposed, and major cities on the U.S. East Coast are no longer unreachable. While the world watches the missiles, the real default clock in the silver market has already hit zero. As of December 31st, port officials in Shanghai began turning away silver shipments bound for U.S. vaults. The default didn't just start. It already happened while most people were counting down to midnight. When New York picked up the phone for an emergency lifeline to Beijing, the line didn't just ring. Beijing effectively hung up. China said no to the bailout. No negotiation, no counteroffer. Just a total rejection of the paper game. At 2:14 p.m., a Gulfstream jet lifted off from JFK bound for Hong Kong, carrying senior people from JP Morgan and the Federal Reserve. They were trying to improvise a rescue before the system hit a hard deadline. The U.S. side put a single offer on the table: an emergency purchase of 50 million ounces of silver, paid for in U.S. treasuries. The Chinese officials looked at the proposal for exactly 37 minutes and rejected the entire logic of the deal. They told the U.S. delegation, "You run a casino of promises. We hold the actual metal." By 4 p.m., the first Shanghai port began stamping silver containers bound for U.S. vaults with export clearance denied. This is the event horizon, where a synthetic pricing system built on leverage collides with a world that has no metal to give. Modern wars don't need nuclear weapons to break the system. They only need to make global shipping uninsurable. Without insurance, ships do not sail, supply drops, and energy and silver prices surge violently. Right now, the paper market is a casino of promises where 23 paper claims exist for every single ounce of real silver in the vaults. This ratio only survives as long as nobody asks for the metal. But that assumption just shattered. The COMEX is currently facing a 42 million ounce hole in deliverable inventory that cannot be fixed with more paper promises. To protect the big banks, the exchange has already rewritten its rules to allow for legalized confiscation through force majeure. They are giving themselves permission to mail you a check for $30 an ounce, while the real metal in Shanghai is worth $90, while Yvette's Trek. The Fed pushed $34 billion into the repo market on New Year's Eve to keep the big players from failing. Silver is posted as collateral behind an estimated $250 billion in derivative exposure in the U.S. banking system alone. When the physical metal disappears, the collateral that underpins those billions of dollars in paper stops working. This looks exactly like 2008, just with silver bars standing in for subprime mortgages. Imagine a margin call at 9:30 a.m. on the 48th floor of a Manhattan tower, where the line simply goes quiet. A clerk at the CME tells a megabank they need $4 billion in cash right now, and the confirmation doesn't come. When a giant is cornered, the price is no longer set by buyers and sellers. It is dictated by the death spasms of the institution. Trust, not money, is the real lubricant of the system, and trust is currently vanishing in a single morning. History is brutal on people who confuse feeling prepared with actually being prepared. In 1920s Germany, families with small velvet pouches of coins survived for a few months before sliding into desperation. But the families that stacked quietly and consistently bought land and businesses for pennies, while others started at zero. Most silver investors are tourists in a storm who buy high and panic during a 20% correction. Insurance is only useful when it is sized to the risk you actually face, not just your fears. Silver is unique because it is both money and an essential industrial component for missiles, solar panels, and medical tech. Most silver is mined accidentally as a byproduct, meaning supply cannot move just because demand spikes. The silver lie is the belief that the number on your screen represents reality. Reality is the metal in your hand, and the system that can no longer fulfill its delivery promises. If you walked into a coin shop today, the spread between the screen price and what they hand you in cash would be an invisible wall. In a fast-moving market, dealers would rather risk losing you as a customer than risk being left holding expensive silver. If you don't know what you can actually sell it for, you don't really know what it's worth. Your first milestone is the survival stack, 50 to 100 ounces. This is the baseline that lets you sleep knowing you are not completely exposed inside a system you don't control. The second level is stability, 300 to 500 ounces, where silver becomes structural in your financial life. The third level is legacy, 1,000 ounces or more, something tangible to be handed down with intention. The time to prepare is when no one cares, when it feels boring, and when there's no excitement attached to the decision. Scarcity doesn't knock, it simply disappears. The quiet window where you can think clearly and plan calmly is getting smaller by the hour. History is clear. Systems rise and systems fall, but real value endures. When the moment comes, silver won't need belief. Reality will authenticate it. Stay vigilant, stay disciplined, and remember, the goal is not to own the most silver. The goal is to survive the transition with your options intact. Today is the only day that actually turns your intention into reality. The events of early 2026 have laid bare a fundamental fracture in how the world prices and accesses silver. What began as subtle policy adjustments in Beijing has escalated into a visible decoupling between the paper markets of the West and the physical reality, dominating the East. China's decision to reclassify silver as a strategic material January 1, 2026, placed it alongside rare earths and other critical resources. Only 44 approved companies now hold export licenses for 2026 to 2027, with strict requirements like minimum annual refined output of 80 tons and substantial credit lines. This isn't a temporary quota. It's a deliberate gatekeeping mechanism controlling roughly 60 to 70% of global refined silver flows. The immediate result, shipments once destined for COMEX vaults or Western refiners have been held back or denied clearance at Shanghai ports. Physical premiums in Asia have surged, with reports of Shanghai prices reaching records around $105 per ounce in some sessions, trading at massive premiums, sometimes $13, or moreover, COMEX spot levels hovering in the $90s. This isn't speculation. It's documented market data showing a clear east-west divide. In Dubai and Japan, physical bullion has commanded prices up to 80% above the official futures benchmark at times. The paper price might flash $94 or $95 on your screen. But try sourcing actual bars or coins, and the reality hits. Availability dries up, premiums explode, and dealers ration or impose minimum orders. This disconnect exposes the long-standing vulnerability in the silver ecosystem, the overwhelming reliance on paper instruments to set the price, while physical supply tightens relentlessly. Global silver has been in structural deficit for years, demand outpacing mine production and recycling by hundreds of millions of ounces cumulatively. Industrial consumption, particularly from solar panels, electric vehicles, electronics, and defense applications, continues to climb. Silver's unique dual role as both a monetary metal and an irreplaceable industrial input means supply can't scale quickly when demand spikes. Most silver is a byproduct of other mining, copper, lead, zinc. So primary production doesn't respond flexibly to price signals. Add geopolitical controls, and the squeeze intensifies. COMEX inventories tell a stark story. Registered deliverable stocks have plummeted dramatically in recent periods, with massive withdrawals in short burst ends of millions of ounces claimed in days or weeks. Some analyses point to over 70% drops from prior peaks, leaving vaults thinner than they've been in modern times. This drain isn't abstract. It's institutions and large players finally demanding delivery instead of rolling futures contracts. When paper promises meet physical limits, the system strains. Lease rates spike. Backwardation appears in futures curves, near-term contracts, trading at premiums to later months, and exchanges respond with margin hikes to curb volatility or to manage their own exposure. These tools can temporarily suppress prices, but they don't conjure metal that isn't there. The broader financial context adds layers of risk. Year-end liquidity pressures are normal, yet the scale of Federal Reserve standing repo facility borrowing hitting records like $74.6 billion on December 31, 2025, raises eyebrows. While routine for quarter or year-end balance sheet management, the timing amid precious metals turbulence fuels speculation about hidden strains. Silver sits as collateral in vast derivative webs across banking systems. Estimates run into hundreds of billions in exposure. If physical scarcity erodes confidence in that collateral, ripples could spread far beyond metals desks. This echoes past crises where leverage met reality, subprime in 2008, or even earlier commodity squeezes. But silver's story is distinct because of its industrial backbone and the geopolitical weaponization now in play. China's move isn't isolated. It's part of a pattern where critical minerals are leveraged for national security and economic advantage. Responding to Western restrictions on chips and tech, Beijing has tightened flows of materials essential to high-tech and green energy. Silver fits perfectly, vital for photovoltaics, batteries, semiconductors, and even military hardware. The transition away from fossil fuels accelerates demand, while mining output stagnates. Recycling helps, but it can't close the gap alone. For individual holders, this environment demands a shift in mindset. Silver isn't just another investment. It's a hedge against systemic fragility. Paper assets can evaporate in confidence crises. Physical metal endures because it exists independently of ledgers and counterparties. The classic advice holds truer now. Start with the survival level 50 to 100 ounce. To insulate against total exposure, build 2 stability 300 to 500 ounces, where it becomes a meaningful portion of your wealth preservation strategy. Aim for legacy 1,000 ounces, or more if. You see this as generational insurance. Sourcing matters. Reputable dealers avoid overpaying in hype-driven premiums and prioritize forms you can store securely: coins, bars, rounds. Diversify locations if possible: home safe, bank box, or trusted third-party vault. Monitor spreads. The gap between spot and what you pay or sell for reveals true market health. In fast-moving times, dealers widen bids to protect themselves. Creating that invisible wall between screen price and real transactable value, patience is key. The window feels narrow because headlines scream urgency, but disciplined accumulation during dips or lulls often yields the best results. Avoid FOMO, buys at peaks. History shows corrections follow rallies, testing resolve. Those who panic sell during 20 to 30% pullbacks rarely recover position. Instead, view volatility as opportunity, lower entry points for those with dry powder. Education sharpens decisions. Understand the difference between allocated versus unallocated storage, futures versus physical, and why ETFs carry counterparty risk. Track sources like the Silver Institute for supply-demand data or exchange reports for inventory flows. Follow policy shifts, China's license list, U.S. regulatory moves, or industrial forecasts from solar and EV sectors. The narrative of suppression banks shorting to keep prices low has persisted for decades. Whether fully true or not, recent events prove suppression has limits when physical demand overwhelms. The silver lie crumbles when delivery requests pile up and vaults empty. Reality authenticates value through scarcity, not manipulation. This transition isn't about getting rich quick. It's about preserving purchasing power when fiat systems strain under debt, inflation, or geopolitical shocks. Silver has historically performed in such environments, monetized in crises, demonetized in stability. Today, with deficits, structural, and controls tightening, the asymmetric upside favors those positioned early, but position wisely. Size to your risk tolerance, not greed. The goal remains survival, with options intact, financial flexibility, peace of mind, and the ability to act when others freeze. Systems evolve, narratives shift, but tangible assets like silver have outlasted empires. The quiet accumulation phase is ending. The recognition phase accelerates. Act, while intention can still become reality. Stay informed, stay prepared, and let discipline guide you through the noise. If this briefing resonates, hit that share button, spread the awareness to those who need to hear it. And if you're finding value in these updates, subscribe now so you never miss the next intelligence drop. The transition is underway. Don't get caught watching from the sidelines. I'll see you in the next briefing.